The James Harden show continues on as we have some new intel regarding the status of the current Sixers guard and his outlook with the team and a potential trade to the Clippers. I'm here to break down what is going on inside training camp and more inside the conversation of front offices around the league as we look at the legitimacy of the potential of James Harden to get moved. As we know that Sixers training camp has picked up this week. Harden, after missing media day and the first day of training camp, did join the team in Colorado and is participating in practice. As of now, the vibes seem much higher than most would expect based on that information, but there is still plenty to break down from the latest Shams Charania and Sam Amick report. Now, before I fully dive into it, I do want to make sure that you guys are hitting that subscribe button. As of now, 87.8% of you guys have not subscribed to this channel yet. We got plenty of big plans with the season coming up. Sixers is officially here. It has arrived. So I want to make sure everyone's here from start to finish this season. I'm excited to dive fully into all the content, and I want each of you along with me. So make sure you're hitting that subscribe button, ringing that bell, and not missing out on any content. Now to jump into what we got to discuss today, James Harden once again has arrived at the Sixers training camp, is participating with the team, and we have some clarity on why this exactly is. So in the latest article, which dropped from Shams Charania and Sam Amick of The Athletic, we have this report here, quote, by taking part, Harden is avoiding the sort of financial fate that Ben Simmons experienced when he lost approximately $20 million during his standoff with the Sixers during the 21-22 season. But beyond the money matters, league sources say Harden is also taking part because he remains hopeful that a trade to the Clippers is still in the works and believes, for now, that it would be wise not to be a distraction. And the Clippers, league sources say, are going to great lengths to make it happen. So it is nice to see some assurance that the Clippers are still interested. I'm going to circle back to the Clippers angle in a second, but first I just want to discuss about Harden's outlook and decision to come. To me, this feels like he's having a little bit of a wake-up call, that he realizes that he needs to be on his best behavior and help drive the market for a trade in the way for it to be successful. That we just watched Damian Lillard finally get traded and ended up to the Milwaukee Bucks, not the location that he wanted. For James Harden, he has more baggage that comes with him than Dame Lillard did. There's a more positive outlook for Damian Lillard as he extends into the twilights of his career, as we're already seeing signs of regression with James Harden, a guy that's an incredibly talented basketball player, but one that plays in such a niche way. And while he is taken some adaptations in terms of becoming more of a playmaker, that explosiveness and his lack of ability to get to the rim in the same way is something that continues to worsen. So that is something to keep in mind as we look at trade value. And also, we know that James Harden, his playbook from past years, tends to be to cause as many problems as possible. And it looked like we were heading down that same path this year when we have James Harden calling Daryl Morey a liar as loud as he can possibly proclaim, or showing it on a sign in a nightclub that Daryl Morey is a liar. I thought we were heading for that version of James Harden, but to his credit, he has been a professional so far. And to jump in a quote here from Danny Green, which I think hit the nail on the head and is important to note here. Green said, quote, I want to commend guys like Pat Beverly, PJ Tucker, and James as well, Green told The Athletic. With as long as these guys have been in the league and with their resume, they're all professional. James, at the end of the day, is a professional. And people may not look at him this way, but he's a winner. Since he's come to the league, he's probably in the top 5 or 10 for the most wins since he's been in this league. Maybe not playoffs and championships, but he wins. And he comes to work and works on his body, and you can see it. He takes his body serious, he takes his game serious, and he's not just one of those guys who's going to come in and be a distraction. Despite the fact that he has absolutely been one of those guys who come in and be a distraction in past years, I am happy to see this coming out of Danny Green's mouth. And the reason that I do think this is the case is primarily because James Harden has a great deal of respect for his teammates when it comes to these Sixers. Think about the guys on that team. There is a genuine relationship between James Harden and Joel Embiid. This is not like the Ben Simmons situation where Ben wanted no part of Embiid ever again, wanted no part of these Sixers ever again. And beyond just Embiid, think about guys like Pat Beverly that James Harden has played with in the past, who suited up during their time in Houston together. PJ Tucker admitted during media today that James Harden coming to Philadelphia was the reason why he came to Philadelphia, that he wanted to play with James again. Daniel House is a guy who's followed Harden around a little bit for his career. These are guys that he's friends with, that he likes, that he knows, that he's played with for several years. That is more of the reason why I also think he's kind of on his best behavior a little bit, that he does not want to be disrespectful to these guys. It is crystal clear that the issue with James Harden is not James Harden versus the Sixers, it's James Harden versus Daryl Morey, that there is some sort of disagreement as far as what was said in between closed walls when they were having their contract negotiations and the outlook and future plans for James Harden. James Harden was clearly led to believe something that Daryl Morey was promised him or was expecting from him, for sure in the contractual obligations, whether this was a dollar amount, a long-term guarantee, or just a negotiation in good faith. Who knows exactly what was said? As I keep mentioning, that was very likely a one-on-one conversation between Daryl Morey and James Harden, and what specifically was said there ultimately decides a great deal of who I believe is right in this situation. We likely will never get that information, and I think this is very much a situation where there's three sides to the story, that being Daryl Morey's side, James Harden's side, and, of course, the truth. And there was an awesome article by Yaron Weitzman that broke down, I know I talked about it on another video on here, but it kind of looked at just how this relationship was always built to blow up based on the fact that Daryl Morey is such an analytically driven decision maker that all his decisions in life really come from what is the best option, what is the best outlook, what makes the most sense and produces the best results, versus James Harden is much more impulsive, emotional, and based on relationships is how he makes his decision. That he has a great deal of loyalty to those that are ride or die with him, but he's also quick to write people off when he feels that they have wronged him, as seems to be the case with Daryl Morey. Now, to jump into the Clippers side of things specifically, we know that this is the pinpoint location that James Harden wants to go. He's made that quite clear since he first opted into the contract with the Sixers. The bigger question has been how interested are the Clippers in James Harden? Because you look around the NBA, it's not like there's a bidding war for the former MVP. There's a quiet amount of teams out there. There's a limited amount of teams that want to jump out there. The Miami Heat are a team I believe are going to jump back in the mix when you think about the lack of guard depth that they have and guard productivity heading into the season. But when you look around the NBA, they just aren't that many places for James Harden to play because there's a specific list of teams that will need to buy into it. You have to be a contender, first off, to want to go make that leap. You have to need a point guard because of how ball dominant James Harden is. He is a guy who is more or less useless when he does not have the ball in his hands. So there's a limited number of teams, and you also have to buy into the play style. I do think the Clippers are a fit for him. I think that there's going to be situations throughout the season where Kawhi and Paul George miss games, and Harden's going to have his opportunities to take his primary shots, have a 40-point performance, shoot 11 three-pointers in a game. He's going to have those nights, and there's also going to be the nights where he can check out. He can defer to those guys, allow them to steer the ship, drive things home, and kind of just be a playmaker for the offense. And plus, he'll be back out in LA, back on the West Coast, closer to home, all these things. I do think the Clippers make sense from James Harden as a landing point standpoint, but they have to step up the table and make an offer. Now, also in this report from Shams and Sam Amick here, it says, quote, league sources say the Clippers have been talking to several teams about ways to move pick swaps for additional draft capital with the intention of bolstering their offer and getting a deal done. The Clippers offered the Sixers an unprotected first-round pick, a pick swap, and salaries for Harden in July, league sources say, but Philadelphia has set a much higher threshold. The Sixers have valued fifth-year forward Terrence Mann and multiple first-round picks in a potential trade with the Clippers, sources added. Mann, who averaged 8.8 points and 3.4 rebounds a season ago, has become a prospect of interest for teams over the past couple of years. So for starters here, we know that there was an actual offer on the table. We can see this, the unprotected draft pick. I do want to note with the draft pick conversation, number one, the cupboard is pretty bare when it comes to the Sixers for their future draft picks, so it makes sense for them to look to recoup assets here. Number two, I think those Clippers draft picks could sneaky be very valuable. That you think about the state of the franchise, obviously they're star-studded right now, a team that, if healthy, should be considered a contender. But Paul George and Kawhi are both set to be free agents at the end of this year. Yes, they are in contract negotiations. Yes, the expectation is they will be back. But if things are to go south this season and those guys are to walk, all of a sudden the Clippers are a bottom-feeding team. And if the Sixers hold possession of those first-round draft picks, those could turn into quite the player. So I think that is something to note, that's at least in the realm of possibility, that these could end up being very valuable draft picks when we talk about the conversation. For Terrence Mann here, and I'm going to begin by pulling this up here. From Keith Pompey of the Philadelphia Inquirer, he tweeted out saying, the Clippers' plan to add pick swaps in a package for James Harden may not move the needle for the Sixers, according to league sources. The source confirmed the team is interested in Terrence Mann and first-round picks type of deal. And then I tweeted out here, Terrence Mann's career stats per game. 21.5 minutes, 8.0 points, 3.7 rebounds, 2.3 assists, and a 38.3% three-point shooter on 1.9 attempts per game. Last year, in 23.1 minutes per game, Mann averaged 8.8 points, 3.4 rebounds, shot 38.9% from three on 2.4 attempts per game. He's 6'5", 26 years old. He's a cool little player. I like Terrence Mann. I just think it's crazy that if the Clippers actually want James Harden, that Terrence Mann is the holdup. That's where I circle back to from the Daryl Morey standpoint of, Yes, it's frustrating the way he holds the line, sets a value, but if we're looking at this objectively, it's just not enough what the Clippers are offering. Terrence Mann is a fine player. He is a rotation player. He's a guy that will be playable likely in the playoffs. He's going to be a fringe rotation guy, but he's not even going to be a starter on the Sixers. And we're talking about this being the barrier for a James Harden trade. So I do think Morey's right to hold a high line here. That Terrence Mann is not the answer to the Sixers' problems. Would he be nice to have? Yeah, absolutely. I like him. He would be a useful player, but he's not the type of player that we add to this roster and absolutely changes the outlook for the season. He's not even close to that. And when you think about it, this is much more about recouping assets for that quote-unquote big deal where they can get a co-starter, Joel Embiid, or see what needs to be added to the mix alongside Embiid, Maxey, and all the other pieces to elevate the Sixers to a contender. So I do think, in part, this deal is, number one, about getting James Harden out of here before it becomes a distraction, because as much as he is playing good soldier, doing his job, and staying in his lane right now, that is not a guarantee that it will stay forever. So I do think that there is value to make sure these talks are ongoing, make sure if you can reach your target that there is a goal there. I think it is encouraging to start to see these whispers, these rumored packages, these more hype about it. That I guess there's things in the work. There is conversations being had. If the Clippers are seeking elsewhere to get some draft picks and up their offer, that is something the Sixers are absolutely thrilled to hear. So there is stuff going on in the James Harden saga right now behind the scenes. For now, we wait and see how things play out. If the Clippers do not up their offer in a major way, if they continue to hold the line on Terrence Mann, I don't see James Harden getting traded for now. Now, my ultimate prediction is probably that the Clippers eventually step up and place a legitimate offer, add some more draft capital, and get something that gets Daryl Morey happy. But unless they do that, I don't see Morey lowering his bar here. But for now, we will wait. We will see what happens. I appreciate you guys tuning into this video. Once again, make sure to hit a subscribe to the channel. Drop a like on this video. Drop a comment. Let me know your thoughts on the whole situation. What package you would hope for James Harden. And I'll be back talking with you next time here on Sixers Digest. Peace.